And we are live on YouTube and Twitter. If you are here, I see some people already leaving some comments. Sunny69 over here. And we've got Rain Tang Studios as well. It's me for real this time. Okay, that's good. So yeah, as we go through here, if you've got any questions for Thad, if you don't know, is the business developer for DoritoDEX. So go give him a follow, Turbo Thad, over on Twitter. So we're going to get more into DoritoDEX. But while people possibly trickle in, just wanted to ask you, what do you think about what's going on here? We had a major, right? The Trump tweet sent us. And then today, I didn't see any bearish news, and we lost the whole candle. What do you make of this?
Yeah, so interesting few days in the cryptoverse. I haven't seen it on a chart there, but that's like a funny. That's like if you know candles, that's like a funny candle pattern. And so, big picture, we had this big slump in the last week. We had the Bybit hack that obviously implicated Thorchain in the aftermath. In general, not great sentiments for the general market, and I don't know how much people pay attention to macro in general. There was also a less than great inflation and GDP projection print from the Fed in the United States. So basically not great economic data, or the economic data was strange, in addition to this huge hack. And so this perfect storm, right, nuked us down to, there was a wick that pushed below from about 100K down below 80K Bitcoin. I don't know what the bottom was, but so that was giving you the last week in crypto. That was last week. And then we have this sort of unstable or unpredictable Trump-Zelensky blow up on Friday. That impacts sort of peace deal in Ukraine, in addition to the United States and our geopolitical position in the world. I would say in general, markets react pretty bearishly to that geopolitical instability. So where does that bring us to, right? Things are looking bad. It was just a perfect storm of bad things. And then almost on cue, and who can say, I doubt this was reactive, right? This wasn't the administration doing this in response to, oh, Bitcoin is low and stuff. We need to cater to the Bitcoin people. But boom, Sunday morning, we wake up and Trump goes, to be clear too, this is important on why this happened the way it did. Trump announces on Truth Social a strategic crypto reserve for the United States. Now, to me, this has been just a long time coming, an obvious thing that was going to happen. It was a question of when. And to be clear, almost like, as we call it in crypto, the announcement about the announcement, this was a post on Truth Social about the fact that they would announce and create a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This involved no executive order. This involved no process as to how or when it would happen. So it's an announcement about a thing that will happen with no confirmation or formal anything. So what did we get Sunday morning? The market shoots up 25, 30%. People got really mad because guess what he said? He said, we're going to have Solana, XRP, and Cardano in there. Those are the ones they're really mad about, in addition to Bitcoin and Ethereum. I was like, everyone keep your pants on. Go pull up a coin market cap chart. Those are the top market cap coins in the top 8 that are not stable coins. So you can be mad about it. Hey, I have never owned Ripple in my life. I will never own Ripple in my life. It's not that I'm defending that, but to say it was a controversial or corrupt thing to simply pick the top 5 assets by market cap, I actually think it's insanely fair. And I mean, fair, it's uncontroversial. It would be better, and I think everyone agrees, it would be better if it was just Bitcoin and Ethereum, or just Bitcoin. I'd be happy with just a pure Bitcoin reserve. Also because the less controversial it is, the more it can be adopted by other people. You better bet that there's something like 23 states with Bitcoin strategic reserve bills going through their houses. I actually testified for one such bill somewhere that I may or may not live and contribute to. Right. So I was at the legislature last week. But the point being, if it's just Bitcoin, all those bills will get through much easier and it can be followed. And you better bet that other countries, in addition to the US states and all these other entities, this is going to cause a cascading effect. Now, if they were to revise the language and just make it Bitcoin and ETH, that'd be great. zooming back to why everything happened. It's a Truth Social post. Market pumps 30%. Brings us to today, Monday. In general, the combination of economic statements by Trump and this Zelensky blow up and kind of Zelensky's press tour in Europe over the weekend to rally support have created a public perception of American isolationism. Not to say it's entirely false. It's true to some degree. And I would say I personally support that. But an isolationist America means a less globalized world, which most of the macro indicators find bearish. So we have a isolationist America. And then today, Trump caps this off by announcing that his tariffs will go into effect on Mexico and Canada, possibly on the EU. I'm not sure what he said on that. And that the 10% American tariff is going to double to 20%. Sorry, I'm just realizing how much of this I've tracked without. I haven't taken notes on this. I'm just like going from my like, dang, yeah. I should be a reporter, man.
Exactly.
Anyways, so that's where we are today, Monday. And so why did we see Bitcoin wick from 80K to 94 and then back down? And I believe we're at 86 right now.
Yeah,
85?
86 still.
Why are we experiencing that? Because the strategic crypto reserve was obviously a very bullish catalyst for Bitcoin in terms of PR and perception and vibes. But practically, it meant nothing. There's no new money flooding into Bitcoin. There's no buy pressure coming from the government yet. It was an announcement about an announcement. That's it. So yeah, that's why we are having this retracement. I think long term, this is bullish. I wrote a Substack, in this late summer, early fall of 2024 that was like to my like sort of more normal and political followers or people who are not crypto people. I'm into many things. And I said it was called like you have 3 months or there's still get in on crypto before Trump gets reelected or regret it for the rest of your life. And it was basically just this argument of like if then statements. If this guy is running as the Bitcoin guy, then you want to get into this now. It's not late. If the nation state has not adopted it or bought it, it is actually not late for you to get into Bitcoin. And, this was in September or October of this past year. So my revision to that article, which still holds true, I actually like it a lot on my Substack. It's just kind of a crypto primer. And it's like, hey, I'm not telling you that you should like Trump or not like Trump. That's not my argument. My argument is just that
pump your bags.
Trump is good. Yeah, Trump good for Bitcoin. I think there is a role for just like neutral crypto maximalism. And my politics aside, I'm entitled to my own politics. But that aside, I don't think it's controversial to say the pro-crypto candidate was going to win. He did win. And then my revision to this sort of like essay is, okay, he won. You might have missed that pump. If you couldn't front run him getting elected, you can still front run him creating a strategic reserve. And that's what I've been calling for the last few months. It looks like we're going to get there. In a perfect world, they would trim out the alts and just do Bitcoin. As much as I think, like, if I was doing it, I would do Bitcoin, ETH, and Sol. I think that for the sake of like principle and fairness, including Sol, but not including Ripple, like, even though I think that's the clear choice, that's my opinion. I'd like the least controversial pro-crypto path would be to just make it a Bitcoin reserve. As in, if you're going to cut out Cardano and Ripple, you got to cut out Sol and Ethereum as well.
I pretty much agree. I'm honestly not even. I don't know what their end game necessarily even is with crypto as part of a reserve, because I know like when Bitcoin eventually the block rewards is going to be so low, and if all the fees, just my concern about it is that if the fees end up just being all off chain and there's no on chain fees really to reward the miners, then the security of the network might have to be subsidized by eventually the government would have an incentive to subsidize the miners, right? And if they're doing that, it's kind of like, can the miners really just operate in a normal way, or are there going to be strings attached and this kind of thing? A lot of unknowns, at least in my opinion.
Yes. I think it's, I want to say almost lower IQ than that. It's, I don't think there's much consideration. Like if they find that it's viable and profitable for the United States to invest in widespread Bitcoin mining infrastructure, I think you may see that happen. especially with regards to like stabilizing our grid and things like that. Like you can make the argument for multiple purposes, but in terms of like the movements being made, I think have very little to do or consideration with like stability and function of the Bitcoin network or fees. I don't see it that way. I see it as they're more interested in investing in digital gold.
I agree. I'm probably thinking too much into it, but
yeah.
Well, let's you first off, do start a news crypto political YouTube channel. You should do that and just do daily morning videos. I would definitely watch, by the way.
Thanks.
But okay, cool. Got your thoughts on here. Let's focus on transition into the project that you are lead biz developer on. So go and give Thad, by the way, a follow. Turbo Thad over on Twitter. He's got DoritoClub. And this is the sort of like their, what would you consider the landing page, right, for the club? So if you hold 3,333 of the Dorito token, then you don't pay any affiliate fees on their DEX, which is getting better and better all the time, by the way. More wallet integrations, a lot of cool stuff going on. If you haven't tried app.eldorito.club, go and try this out. But I wanted to get your thoughts on this because you mentioned the Bybit hack earlier, and sort of, as a cross-chain DEX, as DoritoDEX, I guess. Is DoritoDEX it?
Yeah. So I personally, by the way, if the OGs pick up my Eldorado shirt, we were Eldorado previously. We were purely a Maya DEX. We rebranded to El Dorito, and then increasingly, I just like referring to it as DoritoDEX. In terms of communication, I like that somebody can read our tag and know exactly what it is. It was cool. Eldorito_club, which now I switched to one of our other accounts, but now it's just DoritoDEX. Same product, same team. There's continuity in our tech and in the function. There's just various skins and kind of flames we add to it. And in this context, DoritoDEX, I think, makes the most sense to people. So yeah, that's the reason for that sort of, not a rebrand, but just a rephrasing a little bit.
Cleaner. What's the line from that movie? I can't remember. Right?
Drop the club. It's cleaner.
It's so this with the Bybit hack, there's been a lot of conversation about permissionlessness swaps. Should people be whose responsibility is it essentially to stop potentially the swaps of these Bybit hackers, which ended up being confirmed, I guess, by Zach XBT and the FBI as North Korea. And so you've seen this on Chainflip, which you guys use on the back end in DoritoDEX, and also with Thorchain going on in Maya protocol, obviously in here as well. But some of Thorchain seems to have pushed the responsibility mostly to this stage to the user interfaces, DoritoDEX being one of those. Not that they have to stop anything, but what is the DoritoDEX, if you can speak for, I guess, yourself here, or maybe the team, I'm not sure, but what is the stance for DoritoDEX in terms of screening addresses?
Yeah, so this has been an interesting question, and there's it's very interesting to see the difference in kind of where the builders stand on this, where the investors and stakeholders stand on it, and then where kind of the big doxed influencers stand. There are people who really, really don't like Thorchain because as a theoretically permissionless system, it is not, it's kind of, this gets into the question of the original decentralization ethos and uncensorable money and the freedom to transact, store, and transmit value without anybody okaying that and without a government being able to shut you down. And so that is all fun and games when it's bringing the average Joe and getting your mom's savings on Bitcoin and whatever. And the problem is extreme cases. So this is the case. I mean, this is the case in the world with free speech laws, right? Free speech is all fun and games when it's the fun free speech, right? And then it's like, okay, should there be like ISIS propaganda on Twitter? But also like, is the conservative, are conservative memes like in our general right-wing Twitter space that I am kind of from, like, is that allowed? And it's like, okay, well, if you ban one, then why won't you ban the other?
Yeah.
So you get this issue right now, and I want to call it a little bit of a credibility crisis with ThorChain, and it is a matter of precedent and continuity. So most recently, so the question is, funds are being laundered from this North Korean hacker through various interfaces that have ThorChain as their backend, and they route through the interface, which goes through SwapKit and SwapKit to these. And not all of them use SwapKit, but a decent number of them do. Tevano, who is the sort of investigator who really doesn't like ThorChain on this, shared the dashboard that I don't know if it's a girl or a guy, but he or she made. So the question there is, what is the precedent that ThorChain has set, and is it permissionless? Will it continue to be permissionless? And all of those things. So the interesting question here is that this is the second time, arguably the second major time this happened. And the first was in 2023. And it was a large amounts of laundered funds going through ThorSwap. And the question was, and this was pointed out by Tevano, and they were from North Korean hackers. And it appears this was like the Lazarus group, and it has now happened twice. And in that case, and here's what's the interesting, and some say contradictory, or just, I'm just reporting it as it happened. All of a sudden, ThorSwap was put into maintenance mode. What does that mean? They were gone. They disappeared. And so when you're like, oh, it's permissionless and we'll never censor anything, and then somebody was like, hey, North Korea is sending funds through there, and ThorSwap shut down for about 5 days, I think.
And to just be, for anybody watching that might be unclear, so you're talking about the ThorSwap interface, not ThorChain's base layer, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
And so the overall takeaway from that incident was, and I can't confirm any of this, but there were rumors that U.S. government authorities contacted ThorSwap and said, hey, bad people are using this. Stop it. So they stopped it. And then our understanding was that they re-enabled with some amount of input from the government on who they could and could not let use the platform. So there was some blacklisting of addresses, likely the OFAC addresses. Interestingly, the US government publishes on the OFAC website a spreadsheet of, I call it like the naughty list. It's literally a list of, hey, here are like the for sure government listed bad guys. And you should block those addresses from your platform. And that's a choice that every interface has to make. So the big takeaway from the original incident there was that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, ThorChain did not shut down and did not stop processing transactions. Interfaces, some interfaces did, most notably ThorSwap, that was doing most of this laundering.
You're referring to Bybit now specifically?
No, this is in 2023.
This is the old one? Okay, got you.
Yes, this is the old one. So that was the case then. This time around, what's really interesting is that I'm just pulling up the dashboard. Can I share this with your?
Yeah. I don't know if you'll be able to screen share, but otherwise you can drop it in the private chat, and then I'll just pull it up.
Yeah. So, anyways, this basically has the various. Okay, I'm not able to do that. Anyways, I'll send it to you, but it's a dashboard that shows how these funds are being swapped right now through ThorChain, and which the largest sort of interfaces are and where it's happening. But in any case, the question becomes, without getting into like what could or should happen, there's kind of a divide, which is, for one, and this is interesting that ThorChain's done this, but the question at the node level is, should we keep processing transactions or not? And the network has voted that they are going to continue processing these Ethereum transactions, and the nodes that don't want to do that are churning out. So in aggregate, the system has decided we are okay doing this. And the concern over like, what if the authorities come for us legally, or what if they come after our interface? One of the interesting questions that happens there is like, who are they coming for? So let's just take in the pipeline of ThorSwap, SwapKit, ThorChain. That's like the trajectory, right? So if hacked funds come to ThorSwap, they go through SwapKit, which is the SDK that connects you to ThorChain, and then to ThorChain. So there's 3 levels. who is, if something bad, so A, is something bad happening there? I argue no. I don't think anything illegal is going on there. This would be like a criminal, coming into your store and getting a glass of water. And it's like, criminals drink water too. It's kind of a utility. It's a permissionless, or more like using a public water fountain. So the question is it ThorSwap's fault for letting them swap? Is it SwapKit's fault for connecting them to Thorchain, or is it Thorchain's fault for processing the transaction? I don't know. So far, we haven't had anyone go to jail. It's unclear if there have been contacts between the authorities and any of those parties. And so as things stand, it's all going to be kind of case by case. But without going too deep down those hypotheticals, I think like most admirable of this whole situation was Alex, the CEO of Maya Protocol, basically saying, he wrote this great like mini essay that he shared, and we have it on our Dorito timeline. But it's basically like, hey, freedom and permission are freedom and permission. And I personally like the words that we wrote on our share of it, which are, you are like, there is no gray area between permissionless and permissioned. There is no such thing as sometimes permissionless. It is a contradiction, a comforting lie. So you are either permissioned or permissionless. And so I think that's what's tricky, is just precedent. So we are talking about an extreme example here, which is, the baddest of the baddies are the North Korean Lazarus group, right? And it's like a caricature of bad guys. That said, if Thorchain were to halt the transactions or pause ETH, the problem is that you are setting a precedent and showing authorities that you can do that. Right. So and I'm going to be politically neutral here, but like in 10 years, let's say the Republicans are in power and they don't like the dissident communist revolutionaries that tried to take over the country and stormed the Washington Monument on January 10th of 2029. And so the Republicans are like, okay, here are all their wallet addresses. They can't do transactions on this platform. And Thorchain or the nodes or whoever they might contact might say like, well, we are not going to do that. That seems a little aggressive. It seems like you're persecuting your political opponents. And the government would say, but you did it for North Korea. And so like, do it or we'll arrest you. And so this is the slippery slope fallacy is not a fallacy. It's just real. Like if you start down a path, it leads farther and like it doesn't stop. And so this is about precedent setting. And that's the danger here for Thorchain, for Maya. In my opinion, the zooming out on how all of this has been handled, I think Thorchain and Maya have both acted admirably and done the best they can with what they have. And specifically, do you know like the wink, wink, nudge, nudge, what direction they're going? JP and Thorchain are talking about adding Monero, which has been a controversial one for a long time. Maya is adding Zcash. So if you have to side with like, are you going?
This was bad.
What's that?
If the people like Tay, for example, this was bad.
It's like oh, you think an ETH to Bitcoin swap is obfuscation? Yeah. You're wrong, buddy. I'll show you some real.
Right? Thorchain, am I like? I think in Thorchain's case with that, even if you did a Bitcoin to Monero swap, you still have to have the actual Monero wallet. I think like there has to be some way for it to be traceable for Thorchain to even work. There's like a piece of information, but I don't know how much they're able to do with that. And then obviously once you swap into Monero, you're they can go into La La Land of doing whatever it is. If they do, right, you're doing an ETH to Bitcoin right now, the North Korea people are. Well, if they were doing Bitcoin to ETH and then ETH to ETH, ETH to ETH, and you're doing that with Monero, no shot, basically.
Yeah. Well, and the other part about that, it's really interesting. Yeah, that nobody yet knows what that would exactly look like on like just the tech side. But when I first talked about not this specifically, but years ago, talking with JP about privacy and privacy coins, one of his solutions that I found really interesting to the legal question of like, does adding a privacy chain, it's technically very hard, but does adding a privacy chain end up, does it end up like endangering Thorchain? One of his solutions was to create Thorchain for privacy coins. So like a new Thorchain,
right?
Yes, black. So just for privacy coins. And so that was a pretty good idea, an interesting way to, maybe you could consider that like air gapping it to create a firewall between Thorchain and that, whatever that other entity would be. But in the grand scheme of things, if you need to know the direction Thorchain and Maya are pointing, I see it as pointing in the direction of liberty and privacy, which go hand in hand. I very much support both of those. And I said this to Kenton on a space yesterday, but one of the interesting things is like what this attitude requires. It's easy for all of us to say, yeah, like privacy forever. We don't care. Like, let's let the Lazarus group play. It's very easy for you to say when you're somebody like me or my teams, and the US government might knock on your door and say, hey, we heard you've been letting Lazarus group use your platform. That's a scary thing. Or for somebody, I think of it, we are lower risk. I think of it as like, what about these big node operators that are totally doxed and they run a hedge fund that's buying Rune and staking Rune and like bonding to nodes? I'm pretty sure that's what Kenton does.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And what's funny is I posed it in the conversation as like, oh, that would be really scary if I was that guy. And I kind of laid that out, like the person who has a bunch of Rune and is doxed and whatever. And I didn't know who Kenton was, but Kenton's like, bro, that's what I do. Like, that's literally me. And to his honorable credit, Kenton was like, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm out here. I'll stick my neck up. And so there's kind of this attitude with privacy that the tall grass is going to get cut. So why did the government go talk to ThorSwap in 2023? Because they were the tall grass. And for better or worse, there is some truth to the fact that we will have to, like, there might be some eggs broken. There might be some tall grass that gets cut. You know, pray nobody ends up in jail, but like fines could be in the cards. My attitude with privacy and security and absolute liberty and permissionless systems, and with crypto things generally, which, you know, I'm not calling in from jail today. Like, things have been going fine. My attitude is, it's kind of like speeding on the highway, where, like, you know, don't be driving in the wrong lane. But if there was a highway with no written speed limit on it, and you're not sure what the speed limit is, you do what you think is mostly right most of the time according to your principles. And if you get pulled over and you're doing something that is illegal or wrong, you say, I'm sorry, officer, give me the ticket. I did not know that what I was doing was that wrong. And so in this case, like, it's not super clear how we're supposed to be acting. It's not super clear, you know, what the toolkit is to, like, oh, here's, you know, what's the list you're supposed to block? When are you supposed to block them? Are we sure they're bad? Who's checking on that? Who made the list? So those are some interesting questions. And I would like to believe charitably that if the government came to like me or somebody that builds an interface, one of these interfaces, and said, hey, we need you to block these addresses, as they did with ThorSwap, that's kind of like getting the speeding ticket, and maybe you need to block those addresses for that specific case. And I just see it as a ask for forgiveness, not permission sort of scenario. And we'll see how that goes. I mean, so for us, thankfully, in both of these scenarios, our platform has never been used to launder these funds. So this is not a question I've had to make a hard decision on. And like, hats off to the people who have had to make that decision, because that's, you know, that's a scary thing, especially if people don't realize, like, I think the attitude around crypto is that it's so casual and like, it's not, especially with memes and people just screwing around, like, that it's not serious. And I say to people, like, I've spent like several years of my life working on this product. Like, it's, this is as real as it gets, man. I get married next week, and like, this is like my income for my family that I hope to have in the next year. So we take it very seriously, and this represents our livelihoods.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question? I know that was a little tangential.
I think kind of. I think maybe. So in terms of you guys, the general feeling for DoritoDEX is that currently, right now, you guys are just on a highway without markers, and you're just allowing traffic. But you
Yeah,
haven't
well,
had any. Yeah, you're not blocking any addresses at the moment.
Yeah, and you know, beyond that, consider this. Was ThorSwap or any of these interfaces or ThorChain, were they supposed to be able to know who the Bybit hackers were and what their wallet addresses were before it happened? Like there's literally, it just appeared one day and it was like, oh, I think this might be this. And so, yeah, the question of like what the process is supposed to entail is totally up in the air. And yeah, so I tend to side. I really like with what Alex said, which is basically like, he said, if my protocol was going to be forced to be permissioned by whatever it may be as a doxed person, if they were going to force that, I would step down.
Yeah.
And that's super admirable. That means he really does believe in the core tenets of decentralization and permissionless tech. And I think I would place myself in the same camp. I would rather step down and go get another job, go do something else than, you know, just write bangers on the TL from my personal account all day as a job.
Yeah.
I would rather do that than compromise my principles personally.
Cool. I like it. I mean, that would have been good marketing though, if they knew about the Dorito, you know, own 3,333 Dorito, and then they wouldn't pay any swap fees. And then you just see DoritoDEX like just flying through on the interface. You know what I mean? That would look pretty good.
Yeah, maybe if you want. So here's the thing: I am very fine with Lazarus not knowing about my interface, and
that's cool. Nonetheless,
so it's
out there on the headlines for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah. Go on.
So quickly, we're gonna get into the roadmap, I think, and then we'll wrap it up with the roadmap. But first, we got some people asking questions. So Rusty Bob, something funny. Is that a mountain of blow behind you, bro? I mean, it fits in with like.
I think that's like an Antarctic butte. But good question. That guy, I see it now, and yeah, it's funny.
That's cool. Brennan also, man, this market gives me so much anxiety. Cheers, guys. Yeah, nice to see you, Brennan. Reed, what's up, Reed? Magnificent stash, sir.
Thank you, sir. I get married next week, and my sisters are like, you're not going to get married with that stupid mustache, are you? And I'm like,
I guess we'll find out. Don't spoil it.
I guess
man. You're gonna post some pictures maybe on X.
We'll see.
What do you guys think? Is the bull market over? I want to make sure we get to the roadmap. And we did talk a little bit about market earlier, and then Reed, Silk Road chain. Yeah, for sure. Get married in that thing. We'll see. No pressure. Okay, so let's get into DoritoDEX itself and the recap from last month. You guys had put out a roadmap, which was most of this stuff. Pretty funny here. I'm glad you guys went on a retreat, it seems. But so what happened in February? Got some good stuff, and then let's talk about March. So ARB ETH DEX aggregation. I think that's what, through 1 inch and chain flip. So this is kind of like what kind of volume were you guys expecting to come through this in particular? Is it mostly for like to be an Ethereum bridge?
So it depends how you think of it. We are building the Swiss Army knife of backends and routers. So our goal is to have, at base level, the highest functioning interoperability between all of the chains we offer. But then beyond that, we think it's cool to be able to offer to our integrators and to our platform users. So realize that we have our front end and then we have our back end, which is called DKit. And so that's like ThorSwap is to SwapKit, what DoritoDEX is to DKit. So DKit is our routing server, and we can integrate, if you had Lush DEX, you could integrate DKit on the back end and have all of our routes, which currently we have more routes than SwapKit offers.
Really?
And we've taken a pretty like back-end agnostic approach to it, where we just have an insane number of novel routes. And in terms of expanding, again, just building that Swiss Army knife, we want it to be as capable as possible. And the horizon point we're aiming for is we want a centralized exchange like asset selection for anybody who integrates DKit. And so we're in talks with some wallets, we're in talks with some exchanges, and our goal is to be that back end. And hey, maybe it was cool 2 years ago that ThorChain could offer like Bitcoin to ETH swaps, or that SwapKit could offer that. That's no longer enough, and it's not cool enough. And so being able to get, especially we emphasize one-click swaps, but being able to get in one click, for example, from Bitcoin into Solana meme coins, that's something we wanted to offer for a long time and that we can now offer. We're super proud of that. But again, just our general DEX ag, you'll see it on there. As well as Jupiter Exchange. And this is just really the fleshing out of that toolkit and trying to get as much asset selection as we can. And again, we're going to integration partners and saying like, hey, we want to take care of you. We want to give you a really high quality service where we are on call around the clock to help you service this. But also we have like superior rates and selection. That's the name of the game for us. And it's been a fun new like branch of the business to grow, to really productize our back end and not just be a front end like many of these other companies.
Are you guys sustainable at this point with the like without DKIT revenue? Are you guys sustainable at the moment?
No, but we have the DKIT revenue is the thing.
Sweet.
So like big picture, we do a fair amount of volume. Basically what's gone on, and this was pointed out when we first launched, but basically like if you own 3,333 of our token, you don't pay fees on our platform. And we think long-term that is going to pan out in terms of our just revenue model and stuff. And we have runway. And so it's a financial sacrifice, right? We're not charging fees to everyone who walks in the door or uses our platform. There are some whales who are doing obscene amounts of volume, or just occasionally, like pushing six figures, mid six figures, up to high six figures in single transactions and paying no fees. And so I see that, and it's like bittersweet, right? Because we gave someone a really good deal, and I hope it makes that person happy. They got to use us with no fees, but there's a lot of missed out economic opportunity for us there. Let's call it. So as of right now, we're fine. And the other part too, other people come and use our platform and are paying fees, so it's not a big deal. Right. We're not getting zero fees. And yeah, we feel very good about like kind of where we are with that and doing our in terms of how revenue starts. We are literally on the verge of revenue flowing in the next probably month for DKIT. And the way that's going to pan out, at least my vision for it, for anyone listening and who's familiar with us, like basically we do need to pay ourselves and like keep the team running. And my thought is we're just going to like kind of open source that. We're going to tell everyone, hey, here's the wallets and here's what all of our salaries are. And if this is agreeable to the community, like we are going to use some of that income to pay our salaries. And then everything over that, which should be significantly more, is going to go, I think initially, we have a number of ideas, whether it's buying the token and burning it. Basically, we want to pump price because our chart doesn't look beautiful. And we see this as like we've hit our bottom and we're pretty happy. There's no more sellers. I have cool analytics on like how many people we have in the country club, meaning having over 3,333 Dorito. That number is not dropping. Those people are not leaving. It's pretty stable. So the question is how we kind of boost ownership and then also boost token price. And so we could either buy back the token and burn it. We could buy back the token and send it to token holders in the country club. I actually like that model the most. And in addition to that, it's very likely we are now going to potentially memberize all current country club members, like basically give them a lifetime membership because they own it now, and then like double the amount of Dorito for future people to become members. Something like that may happen just because currently it's $140 to become a member of our country club. And that is incredibly cheap. And right, like the economic value, we're trying to decide how to make this decision. Should it be sort of a DAO style vote? And if we doubled the amount, the other part, like, the more cruel part would be to say, hey, we're just doubling the amount. Everyone needs to be a member. While some people might be mad about that, it would create a bunch of buy volume and momentum.
Yeah, true.
And so, yeah, it's just going to be, again, it's the sliding scale of how much it costs to be a feeless member versus how many people own our token. We are net as like a team and as an individual, as a treasury, we are net buyers of our chart. So we've accumulated a lot of that token. One of the things I was thinking of doing is a pretty big airdrop, specifically to like multi-sig wallets. I see Voltisig as like the highest amount of overlap with our community. So it's a risk, right? Are people just going to dump on our chart if we airdrop to them? I personally think we could convert a lot of those Voltisig wallets into platform users in a perfect world. So that's very interesting. And, it's kind of when you're at a very low market cap, which we are, or, you've dipped a lot, the risk of people dumping on a declining chart is actually lower, especially if you do it at a reasonable amount. And in all likelihood, it's more probable we would create a bunch of new token holders who are interested in the token and probably try our platform. And so we're figuring out all of that right now. I would say primary concern right now is getting these integration partners. And our emphasis for this is just quality over quantity. So like we believe that SwapKit is totally overextended. Most people we talk to have not had good experiences with them. And I don't blame them to some degree, because you know what? I don't know if I'd be showing up to work every day if I had a ledger partnership, right? Pumping my bags. All of the money from SwapKit goes to their private equity owners, who are their team and insiders. So like they're printing money. And like when a smaller interface wants to integrate with them, I understand that it's not their top priority to take care of that person. So we are taking a different approach. We want to be unlike that. So we are going to be doing a higher quality service for a lower quantity of customers. So like we want a small number of mid-size integrators, and almost ethically think about this. If we are not going to have the time of day to like service you as our customer or integrator, we aren't going to integrate you, because it actually is like a disservice to you. This is what happened to us with SwapKit. Like it's a disservice to you to integrate someone and then not take care of them, not respond to their like improvements or their debugging of basically your code. And then they build a business that is reliant on you. And that's, I actually consider the ethics of that kind of bad in terms of just not providing a high quality good or service that you follow through with to partners. So our goal here is like small number of close partners, round the clock service, and just delivering a high quality niche experience. And that does not mean we're ever going to have like the partners page of SwapKit that has like, for them, they're advertising like, look how many partners we have. And to us, we would much rather emphasize that we have a small number of very satisfied customers we take good care of. And so that's our differentiator. We're also charging like half their rates.
Cool.
Less.
Yeah.
Half in the most extreme cases, 25 or 50%.
This is probably a no, but I just got to throw it out there. Can you give any alpha of who might be in talks, or is that tight-lipped?
I cannot right now. We are in talks with four different platforms. That'd be 2 wallets, 2 DEXs.
Okay, that's cool.
Names that you guys no doubt know. And we have this wide range. For people that want to switch to us from SwapKit, it's just a drag and drop replacement. It's very simple. So that's a possibility. And we're not doing this as a company to try to attack them. So we have we could convert customers who are SwapKit customers. We could also create new ones. So going after wallets or DEXs that don't have any Thorchain attachment, that's also a positive sum. So we're pursuing a combination of those strategies. And big picture to anyone listening to, like, if you make an intro that leads to us integrating a partner, we will basically, our bounties are in the 4 to 5 figure range there. So on the low end, thousands of dollars, on the high end, tens of thousands, depending on the size of the partner. And again, to kind of deputize our community and anyone, it's like, hey, go look at SwapKit in their website, go look at us, go look at our Git book for DKit. And it's like, hey, anybody that could be a viable integrator there, plug us in, and we'd love to have a conversation. And then we pursue that ourselves. But it's super exciting. And what's been really fun, man, is like when we talk to people, they genuinely want to try the tech. And I don't know if you've ever done sales before, but sales is usually a process of rejection and insecurity, because you realize that you are trying to, like, I don't want to say trick someone, but get someone to do something that like is a pain or probably is going to cost them more, or, bad sales. In this case, like, people really do want this tech. We are offering it very affordably. And like the sales process of talking to these protocols has been going really well. So we're super excited to start rolling that out. And, look at our chart. Like, We're like, when will the market start appreciating that? We don't know, but like, I have never been more confident in what we're doing, and especially with these integration talks in Dorito and the future of it. And so what it looks like when the market catches on to what we're doing and how the value works, I don't know. But I'm actually pretty patient, and it's not that I'm not worried about it, but I'm just like, I know what's coming, and I think it's going to be extremely bullish for us.
Sweet. Well, glad to. That's cool. That's alpha enough. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So, and it looked like I went and compared your February roadmap to what you have here, and it looks like you ticked everything off. That's always a good sign when projects are actually ticking off what they put in their roadmap. So that was February. Awesome stuff. What to expect in March? DoritoDEX V3. I think this will be pretty interesting because did you guys not just somewhat recently go through a revamp, or has time just flown and it's been like a year?
I think time has flown. It's been
okay.
I want to say that was last summer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that was last summer. It was last summer. I want to say in like August. It was before we went to Vegas for Rare Evo. But we love our UI UX team. We are constantly working on things in the background for improvements, always trying to make things look better, always trying to kind of reimagine what we're doing. I always say our DEX, go try a swap on it as small as you want. It feels the best to use. I've used all of our competition. I've seen their updates. I find them ugly. I find them very often obviously oh, you're a bunch of backend devs who don't care about what this looks and feels like. And that's in everything from color to the just the button sort of texture. Yeah. So anyway, we find we take great pride in building something that's fun and that feels good to use. So we're perpetually trying to improve that. And so that will be our El Dorito or DoritoDEX 3.0. And yeah, it's so far we have liked all the improvements. And so yeah, it's about perpetual improvement. And again, the direction we're going is DoritoDEX will be the premier place to use our tech. Again, you can do it feeless with the token, but as we get more into integrating DKit partners, it's also going to be a place we send integration partners to test out the functionality. Right. So it's hey, you are, I can't even say a name because I don't want to just you are this wallet and you want all of these roots. Go check out all of the roots and go to our asset selector and just open it up and see all the places we can get you to and from. And this all could be yours in your interface. As a side note and a little bit of alpha, one of the ways that this integration will also look is we've been talking about it so far as a backend integration. You're a wallet and you're going to be doing these swaps and you'll be doing them through DKit. What's coming next, which will be really fun, is a widget. So now imagine I can go, do you know what the example I like is OpenSea actually, because it's random and it's outside of our cross-chain purview, right? Mm-hmm. I get in with OpenSea, who hasn't done much of anything for years, and they probably want a cool update to give their investors. So I go to OpenSea and I'm like, hey, do you guys want to integrate a little widget that could be a new screen or a widget on any of your screens? And this will allow people to swap between any chain and any asset. And so I call this solving the what money do you have problem. And what that problem is, oh, you came into my store? It's like being in an international terminal of an airport. And it's oh, you showed up to my store. What currency do you have? And it's oh, sorry, man, this is an ETH lending hub, or this is a Solana NFT platform, or whatever it is. You have to solve the what money do you have problem. And it's almost very entitled and self-important that the cross-chain space thinks that you're always going to come to us to do this thing. I much prefer bringing Thorchain and the cross-chain space to your platform via widget, and nobody even knows what's going on other than it's like having an ATM outside your business. And it's just this question of okay, I always give this example for our integrations. Who needs our cross-chain functionality? Well, the most obvious and lazy example is DEXs and wallets. But when you think bigger, when people were rolling out the first ATMs, they were thinking okay, what businesses do we need cash at? And I'm sure initially there were some answers, but then you just have to think bigger. And it's okay, well, where do people really need cash machines? Or in this case, money changers. I like to think that if you think about my TAM, my total addressable market for a widget that can get you from any asset to any asset, what is that? It's like a mini DEX. It's a DEX that's this side and it goes in the corner of your screen, and I can put it anywhere. I think that the total addressable market for that is inconceivably large.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to get outside the box. I mean it about OpenSea. Like, yo, OpenSea, what if you had a little DEX corner?
Yeah, that'd be cool. I like the idea. It's like a forest. I flew to Hungary like not long ago, and I remember seeing at the airport there was like a Forex desk. I don't know what to call it, but sort of like that same idea. You're at the airport, do you want to swap US dollars into some other type of currency here? So yeah, wherever you might, or like something that just crossed my mind is like VPN providers, or if they accept Monero or Bitcoin or something like that, they could have a widget there. And then it's like, oh yeah, so what do you accept at the VPN thing? And they're like, oh, we accept Bitcoin, Monero, or dollars. And you could just widget that. And they'd be like, oh, well, I don't have any Monero in this wallet, connect to wallet. And then, if Thorchain had XMR, I don't know. You got me thinking now. I think that's a cool idea. This is a really smart idea.
So it's wide ranging, and looking at the amount of volume that many legacy platforms do, basically like our roadmap to total financial self-sufficiency and long-term growth is absolutely there in the next month or two. So that looks really good. But then beyond that, all the additional value we're going to pump into our token and into rewarding our token holders. And then beyond that, it becomes, this interesting question of how we can grow. And I think the cautionary tale to me of like watching SwapKit and talking to their partners is that you need to grow slowly. And like, if you don't have enough service people or devs or whatever to take care of your partners, don't add more partners. And so I'm being very attentive to like how we can intelligently scale our team to account for those needs as they come in, as our integration numbers rise. And I kind of like the idea of like getting to a certain size and saying like, pause, like, let's look around. Let's make sure all of our partners are really happy. And here's an interesting thing. In the long term, if you do a good enough job of that, one of your partners, for example, for us, like one of our partners will acquire us. Imagine your backend that is a third-party backend, essentially, which is what DKit would be. Imagine your backend is like so good, like brings so much value and is so loyal and has helped you so much technically, because it's kind of like offloading some of your dev load onto my team. My team is saying, hey, don't build a router yourself. It's a huge pain. It'll take you a long time. We did it. Use our router and our dev team will be building it for you and taking care of it. So it's like an informal, partnership is like a vague merge.
Yeah.
And over a long enough period of time, it can become real. So like, assuming that we are serving one or more of our partners extremely well, there's totally a possibility for acquisition and or long-term merge, which would be great.
Sweet.
So yeah.
I mean, so that just opens up thoughts regarding what happened with, but we're not going to get into that here, I suppose. Okay, but so with this DKit integrations, what about this revenue share? Is this something that will for sure stay for every token holder, or is this one of those like things that happened with another project?
Yeah, so we're not going to do the old SwapKit Thor switcheroo where they said, hey, we promised the revenue. We promised the revenue. They did it for a year. They pumped the token, and then they rugged. As in they rugged that promise. And I wouldn't say rugged the token, but look at the token. It's at 4 cents. And I guess they're like launching some kind of new token. I don't even know. But not a good look. Not a good thing to break promises. And that is why I'm not going to make specific promises, and catch me here, as to the mechanism that we will use to distribute this revenue to token holders. When I say distribute this revenue to token holders or to add value to the token community.
Yeah.
Again, I mentioned before, it could be buy and burn. It could be buy Dorito and distribute. It could be airdrop to our token holders. Like imagine this revenue is in non-Dorito tokens and we airdrop to our Dorito holders. What that means is that Dorito becomes like a yield-bearing asset. Yeah. And so then that drives the demand for Dorito because people want that. So if we are going to distribute our revenue pro rata, let's say pro rata to all of the wallets that have 3.3K Dorito, you can have more than one 3.3K wallet, or you can have, essentially, if it's going to be pro rata, people are going to want to buy up a lot of that. And so similar to almost like the TCY token, right? people have been doing kind of a napkin math of how much TCY do I have to buy in order to own, what was it, like 1% of Thorchain's revenue forever, or 10 basis points or something. I think it was 10 basis points. But that same napkin math could happen, because if we're pulling in revenue and distributing it profitably to our token holders, that's quite compelling. When I say distributing, there are little sneaky workarounds. And this is how you know that the Thor swap team and SwapKit, they never actually tried to distribute revenue or wanted to distribute revenue to token holders. Because if you even spent 10 minutes thinking about how one might do that to avoid legal complications, you realize there's all kinds of ways you could do it. The airdrop is a classic one. If you have a claimable airdrop and no direct distribution from integrators to these token holders, that is sort of like a stopgap solution that clears some legal liability. If you're even more paranoid about that, right? So you don't want an airdrop that's directly populated by integration revenue. The integration revenue can go to the protocol, and then the protocol can do something else with it, right? Like fund an airdrop, like there's just all of these things, create a farm with a certain APR that distributes that revenue to stakers of the token. Like there are all kinds of well-known crypto methods for distributing funds from a protocol to the token without, like, essentially the straw man case was like, this is going to be legally untouchable by Ledger and stuff. And guess what? There has never been a complaint from Ledger or OKX or any of these partners to SwapKit or to ThorSwap. They just use that as an excuse to make all the equity private and keep all the revenue. And if you want to know my theory as to why Thorchain sucks right now and why the price sucks, it's because the most profitable part of the entire technology and the ecosystem, incubated over 5 years, was ThorSwap's backend, which was called SwapKit later. And that whole thing was funded by the Thorchain world. And you could say, well, no, nobody really owned it. And it's like, okay, the ThorSwap token sale, just the ongoing support by the community, in my opinion, produced out of this ecosystem that thing. And a small group of people took that thing and they said, nobody else can have access to the profitability of this, because it is far and away the most profitable part of Thorchain. And so the big sneaky that no one talks about here is that in the last 6 months, the most profitable aspect of Thorchain, if you wanted upside on Thorchain use, right? It's actually not buying and staking Rune, and it's not bonding to a node. The most profitable upside on Thorchain was going to be VThor, being the SwapKit revenue going to VThor, Thor stakers, and they stole that shit. And yeah, you can cloak it, and like we had to be careful legally based on no complaints that exist or any contact from law enforcement or anything like that, or any legal concerns. By all accounts, that was like maybe advice from one of JP's lawyers that he's like fired. Like JP talks about how he fired accountants and lawyers, and he's like, I love JP, but like he's all over the place often. And most recently, guess what? JP's back and he wants to add Monero to Thorchain. Do you think he still cares about cutting off Thor from? No, that sounds like legal advice given to him by somebody who probably isn't around anymore. So not to stay there, but like that's the story as I see it. That might inflame some people. You might not like to hear that, but like it is hard for me as a 5 years in the making Thorchain guy to not look at this whole thing and be like, oh no, does nobody realize what happened here? Like the most valuable part of this whole thing got lopped off like a freaking arm and is being kept in a private room by, hey, here's a question to ask around Thorchain. Do you know anybody with SwapKit equity?
Well, I haven't asked. Right?
It was kind of this idea of like, oh no, some people will get it. The accredited investors who jump through the right hoops, or SwapKit team member. Who's got that equity? Let me know. And I mean that honestly. Like I have never talked to somebody who has SwapKit equity, and I've known a lot of the whales around Thorchain and all that stuff, and it leads me to believe that that's like a group of probably like 20 people, and they're making. You want to look at their standard fee rate is 20 bips. Go look at 20 bips versus the volume that's being pushed through these various interfaces. It's a crazy amount of money.
Well, then that's good. That's sort of a the market is there for integrations. So DKit has a market for sure that it can tap into.
Totally. And it's been, I thought this sounds like too cocky. I don't want to be ahead of my skis, but like I thought it'd be harder. And you know what? Guess what? It hasn't been hard. I've done sales. I've done a harder sales than this. And frankly, we show people the thing. They're like, wow, this is great. Even swap users says like, wow, this is great. And you guys will actually like answer our messages and it won't break. Like, awesome.
Sweet.
So we'll see how that pans out on the TL, because there might be some announcements that are like new integration, switched, new acquisition, switch it over from other things. So
that could be cool. We'll definitely keep out for integration announcements. We are at an hour.
Yeah.
It always flies by, man. Yeah. Every time we've done these, I think this is our third one. But is there anywhere aside from, obviously, go follow Thad on Twitter, like I mentioned, check out his product that he's got. Follow DoritoDEX over on Twitter. Is there anything else that you want to leave people with before we close it out? Did I freeze? Did you?
I don't think anything major. I think big picture, to the overarching question, one of the ones in the chat is like, is the bull market over? No, man, we're just at the beginning here. I really think that national global adoption of Bitcoin could not be any stronger. Like, there's a lot of articles written on this right now, but the disparity currently between retail sentiment and institutional confidence is enormous. Institutions are buying. Governments are getting ready to buy. US states are getting ready to buy. All of this stuff is in the works. And keep in mind, it is the 3rd of March. Trump has not been in office for 2 months yet.
Oh, wow. It hasn't even been 2 months.
It has not been 60 days.
So much changed.
So there we are with that. And I am incredibly optimistic. I think we are going to start integrating partners and just realize that it's a runaway train. The more partners you integrate, the more volume you're bringing online. I don't mean to dump on Rune as an asset. I think Rune and especially Kakao are great buys here, and I have great confidence in those. Well, more so in the Maya team, because it's more of a team. But and I know those guys better, and obviously that's our history.
Yeah, that's right.
But we have interesting times ahead. I do think the macro conditions, especially with inflation, and if you want a rabbit hole to go down, like go read about the sort of the gold physical settlement crisis going on right now, and all of the gold getting sucked out of London. I think there's going to be sovereign debt crises in a lot of parts of the world that are not the US. We kind of get that privilege because we're the world reserve currency. But yeah, there's really interesting, volatile, and possibly scary things going on with currencies right now. And I think that all plays very well for gold and Bitcoin. So I am highly confident. I think there's going to be a flight to Bitcoin for quality internationally. And, none of us here listening to this need convincing of that. But I'm just saying the mainstream is coming. And it is hard to predict what a follow-on or domino effect the United States of America having a strategic Bitcoin or crypto reserve is going to have. So expect big things. I'm incredibly bullish. And greatly appreciate talking to you, Lush. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. Really quick before we go, I did want to say this too. If you want to buy the Dorito token, it's on Solana, right? It's a Solana token. Yeah. Best way to do it, go to app.eldorito.club/swap. As you can see up here, get you some SOL if you do so choose. And it's default. This is the default swap on the platform. So that's how you can buy some Dorito, 3,333. No platform fees on the platform. But cool. I appreciate it.
We're super proud to have integrated Voltisig recently. Right. I would say I use Voltisig. I use Phantom as more of my hot wallet. But yeah, again, we really hope it's a seamless experience. If you have any notes on our interface, stuff you like, stuff you don't like, bring it by. We are again, this is what we spend our time building, and we're very proud of it, and we're very excited for the future. So thanks everybody. I'm easy to find online, my personal or DoritoDEX. And again, thanks Lush for covering all the crazy things going on in this space. Be happy to do it again sometime.
For sure. All right, catch you later.
Cool, man. Later.